Watchmen's finale. It was really good. We liked it a lot. Not perfect. Left us with a few questions that we're going to go over here right now. But first, keep it tuned to GameSpot for more stuff about the stuff you love. And if you haven't finished Watchmen, go away, come back later.
Who's Lube Guy?
We kind of know who Lube Guy is.
We definitely know who Lube Guy is. Lube Guy's Petey.
Yes. Thanks to the Peteypedia, so if you haven't been reading those, go read the last couple weeks, because it explicitly states that Petey is Lube Guy.
It was a building series of hints.
Right.
The most recent one last week was Petey wrote the book report on Fog Dancing, the book by Max Shea, who is a side character in the comics, has a long history. Petey is obsessed with this book, and he describes the characters as wearing skin-tight silver suits, covered in sunscreen or something.
Right.
So that was the
question here is not who, it's why. It's literally like, why, did Laurie send him on this mission? Did anything come of the fact that he went after Angela? Like, even
in a larger meta sense, why was Lube Guy introduced?
Right.
Why was he in one weird scene of one episode?
Yeah, it's just a very strange loose end that feels like it should have mattered more and it didn't. Is Dr. Manhattan actually dead? Is he really gone?
The show seems to want us to think that he is.
Yes. It definitely seems like that is the thing that we're supposed to think. However, we have seen and we know for a fact, if you've read the comics, that Dr. Manhattan can be literally atomized and then just piece himself back together.
Yeah, you take him apart at the atomic level, split his, doesn't matter, somehow his consciousness survives.
Yes.
This is what originally happened to him. This is what happens to him when Vite attacks him. He is a watchmaker. He sees the individual pieces, how they fit together, and he does this.
Right.
I think if Lady True had succeeded in sucking that juice down into her own body and becoming, maybe I could see that he was really dead.
But we see that her clock thing gets destroyed.
Right, the energy's swirling around up there, getting filtered or whatever. That process is interrupted by the squidsicles, and presumably it dissipates.
And goes out into the
world. Which is what always happens to him when somebody with him. So
you'd think,
if we get a second season, which Lindelof has been clear that he thinks he's not going to, but HBO's executives might have different ideas. I would be pretty surprised if Dr. Manhattan did not make a return in some form. Is Angela the new Dr. Manhattan? Or more specifically, does she now have all or some of his powers after sucking down that raw egg?
Ugh. That is clearly what we are meant to understand. That is the intended effect of the ending. Is that a good thing?
Damon Lindelof said in the podcast that he does not consider this ending a cliffhanger. He considers this a definitive ending, and just because it has the appearance of the spinning top from Inception does not mean that we are not supposed to, interpret the clues and consider this conclusive. So if you look at all the clues throughout the entire series, including the giant Dr. M letters on the movie theater framed above Angela in this episode, we are meant to believe that he transferred his powers to her somehow.
Right. But that it's kind of the same situation as is with Lube Guy, that, we have this sort of at least semi-definitive answer, but we're left to kind of wonder the aftermath of that. So will Angela be responsible with the powers? Does this also
will she be
affect her family?
Will she be a good Dr. Manhattan? Right. And the kids who've been eating Cal's waffles and other cooking.
Okay, who wants waffles?
He doesn't wear a hairnet, right? So if a little strand falls into the batter,
and when he's Cal, he's not aware of how he's using his powers. So and we had Topher kind of building his little magnet sandcastle.
And that was the same sandcastle that it was the John Castle. Yeah.
Right. So
does that mean anything?
And it's extremely tragic when you really think about if Angela is getting these powers, does that also mean that she's totally untethered in time now, the same way that John was? It's one thing for John to have that ability. He was an isolated unit. She has a family and people that she very much cares about, who are reliant on her.
I would love to see a season 2 because of this question. I want to see what happens next with her.
We want to know what's up with Mom Beyond.
Beyond the First?
Beyond the First.
Beyond the Second's arrived, right?
Yes. Beyond the Second is around. She is good. Mom Beyond was a cleaning woman in Karnak. We don't really know what the situation with the employees of Karnak actually was.
Did Vite kill them all because they all saw the squid?
Right, yeah, you would assume to keep the conspiracy a secret, everyone who worked there and who saw it and who saw him recording his messages would have to die.
But he didn't keep that good of track of them, clearly,
No.
because this woman...
We're left kind of wondering, you know, was she a genius? How did she get her? I mean, we know that she wrote a best-selling book, Pachyderm Mom.
She was clearly smart. She figured out his password and stuff.
She's clearly brilliant, but, like, how did she...
We just didn't get a lot of information about her.
Like, I want to know more.
We have questions about her.
Yeah, it's
what
not
happened before, what happened after.
Right, it's not necessarily, like, a crucial plot thing, but it's something that I'm very, very curious
If there was another season and Beyond the Clone was still around, maybe I could see the show exploring some of that.
Right.
I had this question a lot throughout the show, which is where did True's money come from?
Yes.
And I thought that this was going to finally be answered in this episode when we saw True at Karnak talking to Veidt, asking for $42 billion to build her Dr. Manhattan thing.
I was hoping you would stake me $42 billion.
And he tells her to move along. So we're left with the question still, where did True get her money? How did she make her fortune? Was it just in pharmaceuticals with the nostalgia invention?
I mean, she must have, it goes to follow that she would have to have gotten a ton of scholarships, probably went to a really great school.
Yeah,
she went to MIT at 14, I mean, something that she says.
There's a lot of steps here. Her mom was an author, a successful author, so you have some money. You don't have $42 billion, obviously. And Nostalgia, while successful, was eventually recalled. So is she making all this money from people like slotting quarters in the phone booths? Like,
maybe that's the reason she has the phone booths.
Doesn't seem like they would make that much money.
Probably not. But
the one in Tulsa is not heavily trafficked besides Lori.
That's true, and fair. But maybe that's just a side hustle. I don't know. Cyclops and their mesmer tech. It was such a big deal in episode 6, and then kind of wasn't anything after that. Like, what was the intent there? Did they just abandon it after Will took out was that like their main headquarters?
Yeah, was that the only, he burned it all, and then he took the one projector thingy, and then are we led to believe that they just didn't have that technology anymore? Like, was that all of Cyclops? Clearly no, because they survived and eventually, you know, morphed into like Senator Keene and all of that, and then they melded with the 7th Cavalry. So Cyclops lived on, but this mesmer tech does not seem to have come into effect again.
Right, and there was that interesting little bit in the Peteypedia about how True gave everyone in the Tri-County area in Tulsa recently legalized HD TVs.
We definitely read too much into that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people did because it seems significant.
Right,
why would she do that?
Like a theme.
What is the purpose? You combine that with the fact that we have technology to use flashing lights to hypnotize people, and then nothing comes of it.
Right.
So I don't know. It's just another hanging thread. What was the purpose of the Dr. Manhattan phones that people were using to allegedly call Mars when True knew as far back as 2008 when she first approached Adrian Veidt that Dr. Manhattan was not on Mars?
Right, and it seemed also like she was very specifically like cataloging the calls. Like she had that globe where every call was like pinpointed on a map and she could watch them.
She could have just been sending those out into empty space, but she wasn't. She was receiving them somewhere.
And it also, there was the implication that there was at least, if not her, someone in True Industries was listening to them because she knew, like, oh, you wouldn't believe the things people ask him for.
Yeah.
Like, she had some information, so why? Like, why was she, I mean, unless she was just trying to make herself, like, the best Dr. Manhattan ever. Like, she wanted to, like, give everyone... She's like this is her, like, North Pole list.
Yeah, she's filing away, like, the...
Naughty and nice.
I didn't even think about that. I don't think... she had bigger plans.
Yes.
If she had become Dr. Manhattan, she wasn't gonna, like...
Yeah, that's way too
go
cute
around
for
helping
her,
people in their finals and, like, helping their sports teams win. Like, all the stupid shit people pray for, like...
Right, yeah.
She's not gonna go around granting wishes.
So why did she set up the phones? Like, why? What was
I
the
don't know.
point? Will Lori's plan to expose Veidt actually do anything? And if it does do something, will it be good or bad?
Will it lead to nuclear war? The acceleration of the arms race?
Right.
All the stuff that Veidt was trying to work to prevent.
It certainly doesn't seem like that it will, but it doesn't seem like arresting Veidt is going to do anything. We already know that the highest levels of the government
literally
are in on it.
President Redford is in on this conspiracy.
Yes.
So one, rogue FBI agent arresting Adrian Veidt and pinning the last 35 years of bull on him seems like a half-baked plan.
Yeah, it doesn't
that she definitely came up with in that moment because she didn't even know Veidt was still alive until like half an hour earlier.
Absolutely. It seems like Laurie is going to end up in jail next to Dan with probably Wade too. The three of them are just going to be like, well, this sucks. Yeah.
This is a big one. What was the point of the Millennium Clock? Besides being this device that Lady True needed to filter Dr. Manhattan's power and then get it into her body, why the spectacle? Why the monument? They refer to it as the first wonder of the new world.
Right, it has to withstand like earthquakes and nuclear blasts.
Beyond is collecting newspapers. Lady True refers to a time capsule. Why do you need a time capsule if you're not planning to do something terrible and drastic like destroy the world, wipe people's memories, all of the things we speculated about? That all of these clues involving the Millennium Clock, legacy, memory, the newspapers, nostalgia, it all seemed to be swirling around some central thing in the middle, and it just didn't.
It's a gun that shoots Dr. Manhattan effectively. And that doesn't, like, why make it the way that it was?
I suspect, I'm looking forward to rewatching, but I suspect there's going to be a lot of stuff on a second watch now that we've seen the end, where we just go like, why did they say that?
Yeah.
Like, why? Every time somebody asks and they said, it tells time.
Does it though?
Ooh, it doesn't though.
No.
It doesn't do anything real. We were trying to figure out what that was code for.
Yeah.
It wasn't code for anything.
Yeah.
It was just kind of red herring.
What does it do?
It tells time.
Can there only be one Dr. Manhattan in the world at a time?
Right. Is it Highlander rules for Dr. Manhattan?
Dr. Manhattan's origin story is not secret. Like, everyone knows exactly what happened. Obviously, John is a unique individual to be in that case, which we've talked about before.
Right. He's the watchmaker. No one else would have the intrinsic ability to put themselves back together after being atomized.
You know, like, there's obvious reasons that the 7th Cavalry would not want John around. However, it sure seems like as smart and resourceful and capable as Lady True would not need to kill him and then absorb his powers. Like, she could have figured out how to engineer a better origin story for that kind of power.
I'm not sure. I feel like True would know enough about, she would have done the homework. She knows about John's origin, and she would know that she probably would not have that ability to put herself back together. Like, it's not an intelligence thing. It is a unique skill set, you know, that he learned.
You don't think it's a learnable, like a teachable skill? Like, she could not have like taught herself to become a watchmaker?
Maybe. I think you can make that argument. The other part of it is just needing John to be gone. So if she wants to, you know, be the god of this world or whatever, you can't have a lesser god running around. That's how you get Satan.
That's how you get like some Greek mythology.
Yeah, right. If we're going with the whole biblical thing. Like, there can only be one, because we know from, you know, the viewpoint of the reader and the viewer that John has this apathy about him. She doesn't necessarily know that, and so he might take umbrage with whatever she's trying to do. If his position is, let's not interfere in the lives of these puny humans and their stupid nuclear bombs, she might he might have an issue with her taking a more active role. So who's to say that John would tolerate other Dr. Manhattan-like beings being around? I don't know. Good question, though. We talked about wanting to know more about the first Beyond. I want to know what is going to happen to the clone Beyond now. She kind of has a quintessential villain origin story. Yeah, it's very much like a comic book villain origin story. Her mother has been murdered in front of her by Adrian Veidt, who is a fantastic adversary, as was established throughout this episode. I think that there could be a really cool story to tell with her. Yeah, and she's, I mean, also obviously been established as a mega genius. She's arguably even smarter than True. Yes.
It's research for my dissertation. It's on the adaptive function of empathy and the role of rage suppression in social cohesion.
That's a lot of weight to, like, is she just going to be put in the foster care system now? Like,
How old is she?
She's like 15. Like, she's like Topher's age, so probably younger than that. But, like, what's going to happen to her now? She's in the car with Pirate Jenny and Red Scare. Maybe they're going to co-parent her or something.
Oh, I'd watch that sitcom.
It would be cute, yeah. Why did Will pretend to be like an eccentric, feeble old man at first? Like he was in a wheelchair. Clearly he doesn't need it.
Right, it was like kind of a big reveal when he was like, my legs are fine, and he got up.
Yeah.
And we were like, what? Because he's like 103 or 104 years old.
So like, was he empowered somehow? Like that was a big question.
We speculated a lot about why he would be acting more feeble than he is, and also why, this was also before we knew about Beyond being a clone of True's mom, so we're like, are those memories True's, and she has some kind of anti-aging technology, and has she given this technology to Will, and that's why he seems 60, he seems half his age, which is crazy. And then after we saw the scene with Dr. Manhattan and Will, it was like maybe Cal empowered Will in some way to stay alive so that he could play his part in the rest of this.
Sure.
None of that was true. He just has really good genes.
Yeah, apparently he's just taking hella vitamins and is eating real clean.
My last question about the show is, where are you, Dan?
What's going on with Dan?
Where you been, buddy?
I understand that they don't want to like bring in absolutely every remaining character from the comics and whatever.
Something I appreciated, especially early on in the show, when it was this new world and it seemed like it had very few connections to the original. Like Dr. Manhattan in episode 1 is literally a scene transition, and that's it. He's like barely mentioned.
Right, but with this new like status quo for Lori, there's like, did she flip on it? How is he in jail?
I just have questions.
She's not?
That's all. Yeah.
Like,
we know that he's in federal custody. We don't know really why. It's kind of implied that, like, Senator Keene seems to think that Lori would like to get Dan out of jail when he says,
the president can pardon anybody he wants. Anybody. He could even get your owl out of that cage.
That doesn't go anywhere. Like, it doesn't actually it never comes back up. We never get a real reason for why Lori is a member of the FBI and Dan is, like, refused to talk. Like, what did Lori tell them? How did that conversation happen? Why were they arrested in the first place?
And the fact that I'm rereading the comics right now, I'm like in the middle of it, made me remember that I like Dan. He's a good guy.
Dan is a good guy. Yeah. He's arguably the only good guy in all of Watchmen.
I feel bad.
Yeah.
I feel bad. I want to know where he's at.
Watchmen wrapped up almost everything. We'll give it that.
I think this was a better conclusion than most shows get, especially in a first season.
Absolutely.
Where you would expect it to be setting up even more things for season 2.
Right. And I think, if we do get a season 2, clearly there's a lot to go on. And if we don't...
Is this working?
What are you doing?
Meg, I want you to say that Wade sucks.
No.
Thank you for watching. Let us know if we missed any lingering questions you still have. I am Rogue Cheddar on Twitter, and she's Rusty Polished. We'll catch you on the next one.